Now let's go back east. The place I better understand than yesterday's episode. We go with the Metropolitan Division first. Joining me to break the division now, of course, preview, pick which player might be probably a breakout player for the team and how this division could end up. David Alter is here to join us. He's been covering hockey for how long now, David?
Oh, I don't know, a long time, over 10 years.
Oh my goodness. You can read his work as he covers the Maple Leafs for the Hockey News. Welcome to the show, David. You can find him on Twitter at The Alter. Also, my pal, David Dwork. He covers the Florida Panthers. You can get him there at David Dwork. From Boston, we've got Tim Rosenthal, managing editor at Bruins Daily. You can get him on the socials at _Tim Rosenthal. And least, but hopefully, especially in the standings, my buddy Blain Potvin. You can find him on the Twitter thingamajig at Blain Potvin _THW. So many old school journalists don't have the thingamajig, the socials. Alter, how many guys do you know that aren't on the socials yet? The old school guys, I guess.
There's a couple. Some people do it not because they don't know how to do it, but by choice. Some people, it's not a requirement for their job. So they just prefer the zen and serenity of not staring at their phones or computer screens or anything like that. But I don't judge. Whatever works for you.
Oh, I don't judge either, but it's a little bit in today's world. I guess there's a lot of new guys jumping in our profession and getting out there, and it seems like it's a mandatory thing, even when you're trying to get in there. Why are all these experts joining me? Of course, to discuss their teams in the Metropolitan Division, and of course, they're going to lose all to the Maple Leafs, except for maybe Alter's team. But of course, beat them when it matters. So the Bruins, Tim. Things have finally changed. The core is kind of changing. Of course, Big Z, we know, left. He's gone back to the Islanders. I think Milbury is turning over in his studio chair, but gone also is longtime Bruin David Krejci. How can they replace that solid two-way center down the middle?
Well, they're trying to find out that answer right now, and their initial reaction to that is putting Charlie Coyle in the middle between Taylor Hall and Craig Smith. And they gave Jack Studnicka a few reps up there. He's the 2017 second-round draft pick, rose up the prospect ranks after the Bruins selected him. Had a bit of an off year last year after having a pretty good first season down in Providence, and he gained 15 pounds. And during camp, he didn't show any flashes of slowdown whatsoever. In fact, that weight gain actually, he said he became more explosive after gaining that much weight. He's been harder to get off pucks. I see him coming back to Boston in the long term, but for now, they're keeping Coyle with Smith and Hall, and you have some experience there. Coyle's a pretty versatile guy. He just came off knee surgery following probably the worst season of his tenure, at least from a Boston standpoint, after he arrived at the trade deadline. But right now, Charlie Coyle's going to be your answer. I don't think he's a bad short-term stopgap. In the past, he's played well in a top six role, but whenever injuries or any other circumstances occurred. But I think in the long run, you're going to see Studnicka there.
Oh my goodness. I said Metropolitan Division at the top. It's the Atlantic Division, of course.
Yeah. I think we're so used to everything last year too.
I'm still confused about the whole alignment thing. Getting back to normal slowly as the world does. The Atlantic Division, the Bruins do you think they can fight for the top spot? I know this division, just like what we had last year, it's tight. You don't know who could win it. Do you think they're a team that can compete with Tampa for the top spot?
Well, I don't know if anyone can right now, but they're certainly, I think, going to be in that 2, 3, 4 range. And you have a couple good regular season teams. Say what you want about the Maple Leafs during the playoffs, but they're a good regular season team. As we saw last year, even a couple of years ago, they put Boston on the brink of the second seed in the Atlantic before falling once again in 7 games. But you're going to have Florida in there as well. I know one of our panelists will speak glowingly of Florida, I assume, of what they did this offseason and what they did the last couple of years as well.
That's right. Dwork. The Panthers are looking better. I enjoyed how they played in the playoffs. That Sunrise series was phenomenal. I hope to see it again this spring.
Yeah, I bet the Maple Leafs would love to see the Panthers and the Lightning go up against each other in the playoffs and just beat the crap out of each other for 6-7 games again. No, I mean, it's after a long, long time of waiting for a lot of people here in South Florida, it is finally a good time to be a Panthers fan. I mean, not only do they have a great team, but it's a sustainable roster that should be good for years to come. And that's something that we've really never been able to say about the Panthers in their history. So, I mean, just top to bottom, one of the things that we've talked a lot about is just the depth that Bill Zito has really fortified. When he inherited this roster that had Barkov and Huberdeau and Ekblad and Sergei Bobrovsky and Mackenzie Weegar, he's really done a great job of adding pieces to it. You talk about like a guy like Patrick Hornquist. You talk, obviously, Sam Reinhart comes in. You think of Sam Bennett, who he acquired at the trade deadline, Brandon Montour or Gus Forsling, who he picked up off waivers last preseason, who's now earned a 3-year contract, and he's looking like a great top 4 defenseman. So really, it's just top to bottom a great Panthers team that the new GM Bill Zito has put together, and it's now all in the hands of Hall of Fame head coach Joel Quenneville to make it sing on the ice. And from what we saw last year and from what we're seeing so far this year between camp and the preseason, Florida looks like they're going to be a formidable team in that Atlantic division.
Alter, down the middle, they've got Matthews, they've got Tavares, but on the wings, we've seen lots of changes. Of course, Zach Hyman, big deal, left to the Oilers. I know Leafs fans are upset there. Everybody does want to know, how good is Michael Bunting, his so-called replacement? Can he bandage that hole that Hyman left?
Yeah, I mean, like it's going to be interesting. I don't necessarily know that Michael Bunting is the 1-for-1 replacement for someone like Zach Hyman, because Hyman played primarily on the first line and sometimes on the third line. I think they've got Nick Ritchie in that spot for the short term here, and it looks like they're going to try him out there with Matthews and Marner, although Matthews will not play the first 3 games. And Marner is a game time decision for the season opener, although it looks like he could go. So it is tough to replace someone like a Zach Hyman. So they're trying a few different people by committee. That's why they got Andre Kasha and Nick Ritchie, who are both not qualified by Boston, and got some younger wingers there that they've got some years on control and at a lower cap hit. Michael Bunting had a good showing at the Worlds in a short period of time with the Arizona Coyotes, and so we'll see if that's still sustainable. But apart from that, you know, they're probably their most stabilizing winger in that spot was going to be Ilya Mikheyev, and then he suffered a broken thumb and he's out for 2 months. So there's a lot of question marks on the wing, and there's some question marks there, perhaps maybe even a little bit with the goaltending. The defense should be about the same for the Leafs. So yeah, it's going to be tough to replace someone like Hyman, but I think from a cap standpoint, it just wasn't going to make sense to pay him what he ended up getting with the Edmonton Oilers. So I don't know if there is a direct replacement, and the indication has been that they're going to be shuffling a lot of the left wingers around, at least to start. But it's Nick Ritchie's role for the short term.
You mentioned the core, Tavares, Matthews, Nylander, of course, Marner. They're always going to be going to look for the fill-ins on those wings with those core tied up with those contracts. You mentioned Ilya Mikheyev. Is he just snake bitten? And we even heard rumors in the offseason that he wanted to leave. Is that still a possibility?
I don't think it's a possibility that he'll leave this year. He's only got 1 year left on his deal. And then at that point, it's anyone's guess what happens there. Yeah, he's had some bad luck. He had that injury before the pandemic that where he, you know, is kind of laceration, which was weird and took a long time to recover from. And then this is another long-term injury, although he had successful surgery earlier in the day, and it looks like, he's going to be on that road to try and recover. But yeah, he was a guy who reminded me a lot of Hyman, who was in the right place at the right time to retrieve a lot of pucks. So that's a guy you want to get to those other core players who are going to put the puck in the net. So that's the big loss for them there. It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. But Mikheyev, they're going to have to learn how to deal without having him for the short period of time.
Thank you for dropping by, David. If you got to go, you got to go. And it does look like Mikheyev. His nickname, it's so odd that they called him the Snake, because it seems like he's snake bitten. All in preseason, they started calling him the Snake. So it's really interesting. Back to David Dwork. They also locked up Sasha Barkov, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 8-year deal. Richest contract the team's ever paid out.
Crazy enough. But it's very deserving. We know that compared to the rest of the league. How do you think he's going to change? Is he at all because of that contract and maybe more settled going in, knowing he's got that locked up and he's probably going to be a Panther for life?
I mean, I don't think this is the kind of thing that Sasha Barkov lets bother him, whether he was going into UFA. If he went that far, he's just not the kind of guy that lets that stuff get into his mind. He lets his agents handle that. And the Panthers are really lucky in that regard that they drafted a guy like Sasha, just because he's so happy here. He's just a genuine nice guy that just busts his ass. One of the hardest working guys that you're going to get on the team. And he just wanted the team to start winning. He just wanted to feel like, what he said in the press conference was, I wanted to win a Stanley Cup. I see other teams making the playoffs, but I didn't want to leave to do that. I wanted to do that here. And now he's a part of where that's happening. So I think in terms of the deal itself, I think we can probably all agree that if Sasha would have gone UFA, he would have gotten a lot more than 10 million AAV. I think he gave the Panthers a little bit of a hometown discount in order to let them continue to build and put a little bit more money back into the roster, which hopefully you'll see pay off next summer when they start negotiating with Jonathan Huberdeau and see if they can get him locked up long term. But Barkov is going to be a Panther probably, I don't want to say probably for life, because he's still only 26, and 8 years from now, he's still probably going to have a few years of gas left in his tank. But to make that kind of a commitment long-term to a team like the Florida Panthers, which, let's be frank, nobody was making any kind of a commitment like that over the last couple of decades, to see the tide now changing in South Florida, it's really cool.
Oh, wow. It is really changing the tide, and some of those waves, they're pretty crazy down on the coast there. And you know what? I'm so glad that David Alter left. That guy just no. He's not here to protect himself, so I can't go there. But no, I'm happy because we had two Davids on the panel, and I know I was going to get confused. Blain, over to you. Again, I got to leave you last because I want the Leafs to beat them, so I want you to always be last. No, that's not the reason.
Is it 3-1 already?
Oh. 3-1, or Tim's gonna get me with the 4-1.
4-1, yes, absolutely.
Maybe David, do you want to kick the Leafs down 5-1 come this spring? Jeez. All right, Blain. There's been some wild changes, and some of them we didn't expect with the Habs this offseason. The biggest one. There were so many, but I think it's always going to be Carey Price. We heard what people thought was, maybe, trickery with throwing that in there before Kraken had their, fantasy draft, their inaugural expansion draft, and throwing that out there that he's banged up and he might not play. And then we knew that maybe he could start the season, but without getting too much into what he's dealing with, and we wish him all the best. You don't have to touch on how long he could be out, but is Jake Allen and company up to replacing him?
Well, Price is going to be gone for a minimum of 30 days. So that right there, that's guaranteed. Is Jake Allen able to replace him, judging by his performance last season, where he brought the Canadiens into the playoffs in a very injury with a team that had a ton of injuries, and they had that really tight schedule. He still pulled it out, and he got them in there. So yeah, I think Allen can fill the gap. I'm not saying he's going to get them to the top of the division, but they'll be able to tread water with him for sure.
And how about Big Shea Weber? Man, that's I could start crying, as you know. Still, I'm not a hardcore, growing up a Leaf fan or anything, but just seeing what the Habs have gone with, the fans, but of course the players within that dressing room, just within this offseason, it's been tough. Addressing the Shea Weber information that he could be gone. Again, how are they going to replace his big skates?
You can't. What he brought was more than just the on ice, which even at his advanced hockey age was still fairly impressive, still able to eat up a ton of minutes. He was an intimidating presence on the ice, played a very physical brand, to the point where they've come back with this whole cross-checking rule because, I guess some of the Leafs were a little fed up for being tenderized. So to replace his on ice, they went out and got David Savard, who, as good as he is, he's no Shea Weber. Mm-hmm. The biggest issue is the leadership that's lost. That's going to be a big storyline through the season. Mm-hmm. There's hope that Gallagher could fill some of those shoes. Carey Price is a big leader in that room, but with him gone as well, Paul Byron's out with injury. So those are very big pieces in their leadership cadre, and it's going to be difficult to see how they can replace that. So that's going to be the start of the year, is going to be a feeling out process. And there's a hope that people step into that vacuum, but that's a big gap to fill.
I'm going to have you back on the show, and we're going to break down more of that blue line and how they're going to look. And of course, the veteran presence on this very youthful now team, just out of nowhere. Tim, the goaltending over there on the East Coast, it's wow. We've had for years the tandems, and we're so used to Tuukka being back there. I know some Bruins fans are like, we can get by with Tuukka. No, you can't.
Tell me about it.
Oh my goodness. What is wrong with these people? We're not going to go there, but
maybe save it for another show. Maybe I have no idea.
Oh my goodness. But how are, I guess, the tandem of Linus Ullmark and Swayman gonna do?
Yeah, well, they had some encouraging news with Jeremy Swayman. You look at his 10-game run last year when Halak was out for COVID reasons, and when Rask was nursing his hip injury. It was nothing short of extraordinary. The Bruins were still fighting for a playoff spot, and the way Swayman performed, and even Dan Vladar to a degree, they kept that team afloat when they easily could have sank. And I think just being in that position allowed them to get Taylor Hall and Mike Riley at the trade deadline too. But in terms of Swayman, he's picked up right where he's left off in the preseason. Nothing else is telling me that with Ullmark, he's a bit shaky at times in the preseason, but I think it's just getting adjusted to new surroundings, actually having a pretty good team in front of him for once. And don't forget, he wasn't terrible in Buffalo last year as well. One of the only bright spots. So I think the Bruins see some intrigue in Ullmark, which is why they made the investment, a risky investment at that. But Swayman's the goalie of the future for sure, whether Rask comes back this year or even plays here for another year or two. It's Jeremy Swayman's team. I think it's going to start at the end of the season too. I think you'll see him, assuming they make the playoffs, be the number one guy.
You've heard it here, folks. Swayman is the man behind the pipes.
That's not to say they won't split, because I still see a 47-35 type of split in terms of starts. But Swayman, I think, as long as he continues to traject upwards, is going to get the majority of the starts.
Before we go, David and Blaine, you can jump in. Do any of these teams, do the Florida Panthers have a chance at least taking that top spot against Tampa, or I guess maybe Toronto?
I mean, we'll see, right? If last night was any indication from what we saw from Tampa, there's probably a couple of holes there. I mean, we know that their bottom six isn't as reliable, let's say, as it was within the last couple of years. And we'll see. I mean, with Tampa, they've got the best goalie in the world. They've got some of the best forwards. They've got Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point. They've got a very crazy lineup. Can the Panthers take that next step and challenge Tampa? I mean, we saw them go toe to toe in the playoffs last year. Florida should be improved this year over last year. So it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. As for the other teams, I mean, I'll let you guys speak to your teams, but I will say I'm glad at least we're not going to have to deal with Carolina in the same division again this year.
Yes, that is going to be a little bit helpful. That Atlantic division, it is tight. It is tight. If you look at the betting odds, Tampa's, of course, leading the way, just edging out Toronto, but Florida and the Bruins are right there. Montreal, a little bit dipped, of course, with those changes, Blaine. Do you think they have a good shot at least at the playoff spot? I know that's going to be tough. Or can they fight with these four teams? I can't hear your mic. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the Canadiens can fight for a wild card spot. I do feel that Florida is ripe for taking the first place in the division, simply because they're a little bit more complete. Tampa's probably going to rest guys through the season because they're looking towards the playoffs more so.
Yeah.
Toronto, well, they're a regular season team through and through, so they'll for sure make it. Montreal, it's the defense that's going to be the issue, but I think they have enough to make that wild card pitch. And what they do once they're there, that's a whole other story. But if they can just make the wild card spot and make the playoffs, I think that's a win for their season. Thank
you for joining me, gentlemen. Up next, it's the Metropolitan Division, right? Oh my goodness. I just blew my mind at the beginning. You can find these guys, David Dwork on Twitter at David Dwork, Tim Rosenthal at Bruins Daily, and my pal Blaine at Blain Potvin _THW. Talk to you guys later.